Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1328, 1328. I am your host, Mike Matthews, and this is Mike's Daily Podcast. We're broadcasting from Café Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont. Today, Madam Rutabaga, Valentino, Bison Bentley. Plus, we're going to get to a segment called the Newsbleed section.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And I can't tell you how happy I am that I'm not in Arkansas, because I'd probably be dead.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Because Arkansas is killing a bunch of convicts now, and they won't let you kill a cow. Oh wait, they will, because they're not India. And I had to tell you that despite all that's going on in the news,
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's nice to see Obama is back. He's back and he's moderating children. He's saying,
Mike's
tell me about your lives.
Daily
And they're like, well, Obama,
Podcast.
we're growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
And someday we're going to be really old and we're going to tell people once upon a time we had a black president, and they're going to laugh. And he says, word. Do people still say word? I'm living in 1991, my friend. I guess. That darn Ice Ice Baby song.
That's not even funny.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Look who else walked in. Wait, I guess I walked in, so then look who else walked in. Now. Wait, what? I wrote down the wrong thing, didn't I? On my show notes from yesterday. Oops. Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, the shop supervisor. Yeah, you said on the website that nobody was coming in today, but here's someone else. Oh, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer, Mike. I would rather be in France than be in Arkansas. Yeah, France is an interesting melting pot of I don't know what. Yeah. And you've got the Arkansas with several executions going on. And executions versus elections. And then meanwhile, on BART, I'm so glad I wasn't on BART Saturday night. Apparently, my roommate, who has been taking BART just about every day for a school he is going to in San Francisco, and is usually...
And here's today's podcast picture.
But by the way, that voice you just heard, Ariel, I was going through, she used to live with me and my then wife as she was finishing up her community college, and then she would eventually go to UC Berkeley, and UC Berkeley is in the news again. But she once did a really funny seahorse impression. Yes, a seahorse impression. And we were at a beach in Ventura, California, and she did the seahorse impression. And yesterday I found that video thanks to Windows 10. Yes, that wonderful program that came out 2 years ago now. It can consolidate all your videos, so you don't have to pull the video out of the folder you've put it. If you're the type that likes to keep things on hard drives, and you've got your video mixed in with your photos, this program they have, it's their movies TV app thing, will find all the videos you have if you just give them a general folder to look at. Like even just a hard drive, it'll look through and go, oh, okay, here are your videos. So it found these videos that it would have taken me forever to click through all the file exploring to finally find it. And I was just, wow. It was so long ago, and it is so funny to see. And I can't wait to see some of the other videos. This is I took a video with my cell phone at the time, which wasn't even a smartphone, and did not have, a very good bit rate of capturing motion and whatnot, so it's not that good, but it's still going to be fun. It's going to be like our parents, when they used to take the reels of the film out and put it in the projector and put up the movie screen and watch and go, "Ah, that's you, watering the front lawn. Look at you in your diapers." Yes, somewhere there is a film of me. I think my mom has it somewhere. Maybe it's just in my memory, and that's all it will ever be, thankfully. But yeah, I'm in my diapers. I'm a baby, and I'm a 1-year-old. I'm standing anyway. Maybe I was 2. Maybe I was 10 by the time I learned how to stand. And I'm watering the front lawn of my grandma's house. And they're trying to take the hose away from me, and I start to cry, which is basically how I am now. Don't take my hose away from me. My pantyhose. And I look darn good in my pantyhose, don't I? Don't! What? I don't? Oh. Was that what? Yes, this little bit of pantyhose humor has gone nowhere. But what I would like to say is that... Where were we? Oh, Berkeley? Oh, BART. Wow. BART. Yeah, so these... Was it... I've heard different reports. Actually, I ended up reading the news press release, is the word I want to say, from BART, saying that it was like 20 or 30 kids that just jumped the gates at the Coliseum BART station, went up to one of the BART cars and stole people's wallets, purses, and cell phones and smartphones. And a couple people got their heads hit really hard, and it's just crazy. So the thing is, they are on film. They've been videotaped, or whatever the expression. They were on camera. Their cameras in the BART, their cameras on the platform. Their faces are known, so it'll just be a matter of time before they're caught. And BART basically said that in their BART, go! In their press release. But dang, my roommate would have been on that car. He usually is coming back from San Francisco around that time. It was 9:30 at night, and luckily a friend from school gave him a ride back to Podcastro Valley. So interesting there. But the other thing I wanted to mention was Obama is back, and he was moderating a discussion with a bunch of young students about being involved in their community and government. He took a couple questions. He's not flying off the handle like Trump does. He's always been a very careful guy. The big question, of course, is who is he partying with? Was he on Fiji? French Polynesian Islands, somewhere out there partying with a bunch of rock stars and having a great time. Well, I think I've got to... Oh, one other thing. So basically Obama was not what I would call a Labrador leader. Trump, Kim Jong-un... You see where I'm going with this. We got a lot of overweight leaders on our planet, except for the guy in Canada. He's pretty slim. But what is it? We're going to have these leaders, these unhealthy leaders, just croaking. Trump, I hope he stays in shape. Labrador leaders. Thank you. I came up with that. It was... And I promise to eat more donuts. Donuts. We're very Simpson-centered today. So, Mike'sDailyPodcast.com is where you can see the past podcast pictures, and I blew right past that, didn't I? It's a picture of Basil the Boxer. He was on a walk yesterday. Cull Canyon is where we were in Podcastro Valley, and actually this picture was filtered by Google, because I use the Google Photos to just upload from my phone to kind of back up everything, and they took that photo and said, hey, look what we did with it, what do you think? And I said, I like it, I'm using it as a podcast picture. And they went, oh, cool. So there it is at mikesdailypodcast.com. See all the past podcast pictures there. There's also where you can help us out through the Amazon link. Click on that, buy whatever it is you're going to buy that helps us out. There's also the, PayPal. You can help us out that way. And there's all the past interviews. I've got them all A through F, G through J, and at some point I'll do K through Z. But you can also catch some of the interviews I did 2011 when this show started all the way up to the present at mikesdailypodcast.com. And now the segment,
the Newsbleed section.
Lots of news. So much news to get to's. That'd be a good name for a segment. News to get to's. Me would. This is the only person that finds that interesting. But the White House yesterday sought to calm a jittery Washington ahead of a show. I can't put words together. They're trying to calm everybody down. The White House. There's a showdown with Congress over spending, possibly. And President Trump softened his demand that a deal to keep the federal government open include money to begin construction on his long-promised border wall. Because he loves that wall. He wants to build that wall. And
I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. And I'll build them very inexpensively.
Despite both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue being controlled by one party, the Republicans, the brinkmanship that came to define spending battles in the Obama years has tumbled into the Trump era, as have the factional divisions over strategy and priorities that have gripped the GOP for a decade. This, according to the Washington Post. There's a Friday deadline coming up at the end of this week. Did you know that? And they need to pass a new spending bill. Trump administration projected confidence that a shutdown would be avoided in the face of fierce Democratic opposition to fund the wall's construction. White House officials signaled yesterday that the president may be open to an agreement that includes money for border security, if not specifically for a wall, with an emphasis on technology and border agents rather than a structure, an actual physical structure. Trump showed even more flexibility yesterday afternoon, telling conservative journalists in a private meeting that he was open to delaying funding for wall construction until September. At issue is whether the spending measure will explicitly allocate funds toward building a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, a campaign promise that was his rallying cry. Democrats, meanwhile, gave the White House an opening, saying they would agree to some new money for border security, so long as it did not go toward the creation of a wall, something Nancy Pelosi has called immoral. In a speech on the Senate floor, Minority Leader Chely Shoehart of New York blasted the idea of a wall while suggesting that a combination of smart technology and law enforcement, including the use of drones, would be a much more effective way to secure the border without hitting an impasse in Congress. Now, speaking of things flying in the air, United Airlines is back in the news again. One of their planes had a terrifying emergency landing after one of its engines overheated over the ocean. This, according to Time magazine. United Flight 1516, bound for Houston, Texas from Liberia, Costa Rica, it was bound for Houston. They had an engine problem. One of my plane's engines overheated over the ocean, said Jody Genesee, one of the passengers on board, tweeted after landing safely. We about crashed in an emergency landing before the pilot quickly pulled up. So scary. They stopped traffic into the Liberia, Costa Rica airport. Fire trucks, ambulances, and emergency vehicles waited for us to land. Freaky. We circled over the ocean for an hour to burn fuel before landing. I fly a lot. This was the most frightening thing I've ever experienced. Wow. Lots of tweets from Jody Genesee. According to a local report, the plane took off from Daniel Alduber International Airport, then landed back at the airport about 2 hours later. I once had to circle while trying to land in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was so, because I knew we were over Atlanta. I'd flown to Atlanta so many times. And I was just, the circling around Atlanta is just driving me nuts. I can't stand the circling. According to FAA guidelines, modern twin-engine jets can fly for hundreds of miles on one engine. If a twin-engine jet conducts over-the-ocean operations, it is required to be able to fly for hundreds of miles and sometimes more than 1,000 miles on one engine. Now, on to back what we were talking about earlier, Berkeley. Students who invited a conservative commentator, Ann Coulter, to speak at the university sued school officials yesterday, saying their postponement of her talk was discriminatory and violated free speech rights. She had been scheduled to speak on April 27th, but her appearance was canceled out of concern it might spark violent protests. The university proposed rescheduling her appearance to May 2nd. There have been demonstrations at several U.S. colleges in recent months over speaking invitations for conservative figures. In canceling her speech, Berkeley officials cited violence that broke out at the campus in February, hours before Milo Yiannopoulos, the right-wing media personality, was scheduled to speak there. Speaking of right-wing nut jobs, Chobani, they're not the right-wing nut job, they're delicious yogurt, but they have filed a lawsuit against right-wing radio host Alex Jones and his website Infowars.com after a video was published earlier in April that strongly alluded to a link between the yogurt maker's practice of hiring refugees with a local Idaho sexual assault case. He's got another lawsuit going on. I think his ex-wife is suing him right now too. That was a recent story we had. While the video report by Infowars reports David Knight and Lee and McAdoo is somewhat vague in linking the sexual assault case with Chobani's hiring practices, the headline on the Infowars video and the piece by Infowars reporters strongly hints at links between Chobani's workforce and the local sexual assault case. Jones also tweeted the story to his 610,000 Twitter followers. Now, finally, Google and their car. The autonomous car company owned by Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is called Waymo. And they have begun offering free rides to the public in a new fleet of self-driving minivans. The Chrysler Pacifica is Waymo's vehicle of choice for the trial, which is referred to by the company as an early rider program and is running to help establish how driverless on-demand cars will become a part of people's everyday lives. Like a similar autonomous taxi trial being run by Uber, the Waymo vehicles will have a test driver and the driver's seat at all times, ready to take over should the autonomous system need help. I wonder if they're a good conversationalist, this surrogate driver person. Potential customers can sign up with the service as long as they live in the greater Phoenix area of Arizona. Driverless rides will operate in an area twice the size of San Francisco. Customers wanting to try the service, which is free for now, can apply on the company's website. Waymo is looking to work with customers who are willing to use the autonomous minivans as their primary mode of transport. Now, Apple, by the way, they're in, the other big monolithic technology company, has delayed the release of their first original video series, an adaptation of James Corden's popular carpool karaoke segment. They've delayed that. Apple said the show would debut in April, and only be available to Apple Music subscribers, but their senior vice president of Internet Software and Services said that it's going to be delayed. This is a horribly written article, so I will jump out of that. But I will tell you two more things. One other technology thing, that is the Japanese company that created smartphone a case to help parents prevent their children from becoming addicted to their mobile devices. It's a case which can only be removed with a specific screwdriver and allows parents to set time restrictions on their child's smartphone usage via an accompanying app. Motion detectors built into the case also deactivate the phone automatically when the child is walking to prevent them from checking the devices while on the move. That's an interesting thing created by Momo Limited, a Japanese venture firm based in Kobe City in West Japan. Why don't parents just say, don't use your phone? I'm taking it away from you. This was the last thing I wanted to talk about, was Whole Foods possibly being bought by Albertsons. Albertsons owns like Safeway and a bunch of supermarkets in the California, in the Bay Area in California. The U.S. supermarket operator controlled by buyout group Cerberus Capital Management. Albertsons is exploring a takeover of high-end grocer Whole Foods. The U.S. private equity group that backs Albertsons has had preliminary talks with bankers about making a bid for Whole Foods. No formal bid has yet been made. But that it would be very interesting because, well, I don't know, maybe that would bring the prices down at Whole Foods. It is so expensive there. In March, Albertsons had held preliminary talks to merge with Sprouts Farmers Market, an organic food retailer. We got a bunch of those in the Bay Area. And I was very upset with this thing that I'm with through my company called Vitality, that it is supposed to bring your health care down. And the whole point is you have to get points for this Vitality thing. And you do that through buying a Fitbit and putting it on you, and it measures how far you walk and how many steps you take. And if you're taking a lot of steps, it gives you more points, and the more points brings down your health care. And you can use the points to buy things too. Well, I thought that the way they have this thing too that you can link up supermarkets that you buy stuff at. And if you buy food that is healthy, they'll give you points for that. Well, I went to Safeway and bought something healthy, and I got no points. I'm like, okay. And they on the website, they're like, no, you got to do it this way. So I did it that way. Went to Safeway, bought some broccoli, thought I was going to get some points. Didn't get any points. And then they finally said, oh, well, Safeway, even though they're owned by Albertsons, a company that does work with us, we don't. Safeway is its own thing, and blah, blah, blah. They had some lame excuse. Stupid Vitality. As we go outside of Café Anyway, we're bringing Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley. It was a heavy news show today with a little bit of tech here and there, and I hope you enjoyed it. But I think in the end, enjoyment is a subjective thing. Next show, it's going to be Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!